Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kyle Patterson from Bryson Insurance. And again, I am joined with Corette Miller. Thanks, Corette, for joining us.
Thank you, Kyle.
And today we are going to talk about a really difficult and challenging issue for all companies and HR professionals and employees. We're going to be talking about the COVID crisis in relation to layoffs. And Corette's joined us to answer questions from there today. So, Corette, my first question for you is around employees being temporarily laid off due to a shortage in work due to the COVID-19 crisis. Can employers do that?
Yes, that is probably one of a very top question right now. It's probably one of the biggest questions. And what is also imperative is the word that you use, temporary. It's a temporary layoff versus a permanent layoff, which would be, essentially then a termination. But yes, employers can offer layoffs to their current staff. And there's about four, outside of the norm, there's, in today's world, there's 4 different scenarios that you would be eligible for unemployment. And of course, that would be that you're sick, so you're under quarantine. And so that would be entitlement under the sick benefits. You're laid off due to work to the shortage of work. So the reason for that would be shortage of work. And of course, the involuntary leave because the business is shutting down. And the 4th scenario, which is brand new and was only introduced about a week or so ago from the federal government, is the emergency leave package for individuals who are not eligible for EI on a normal basis, which would be a self-employed individual who does not contribute to EI. However, it was announced today from the federal government the new Canada Emergency Response Benefit. And we will continue. That was only like an hour, 2 hours ago. So we're going to continue to get a lot of information, a lot of questions around that. But at a high level, basically what he is saying, or the government has determined, is that this benefit will be now eligible to everybody. So if you're an employee on payroll, if you were a contractor, self-employed, 100% commission-based, if you're individuals that are at home, and you're sick, or you're at home because you've been deemed a non-business and there is no work, essentially going to encompass everybody under the whole umbrella. The benefit is going to replace the previous emergency benefit and the support benefit, which were those original scenarios. And you're going to, people will be able to apply for $2,000 a month up to a 4-month time frame. So keeping that in mind, we are close to 1 million applicants, submissions. Which our government is not prepared and hasn't been prepared for such an overwhelming amount. They have hired about 1,300 plus staff to help navigate and start the processing of these applications. They are working on an online portal. And of course, their aim is to have that portal available for April 6th. Therefore, then they're hoping that funds will start flowing within 10 days. There was no guarantees on that, so that's their aim. That's what they're striving for. But everyone needs to realize this is not a guarantee. It's very much more details to take to create this process and application process than some may realize. I'm stating that as soon as you get your paperwork, submit it. There's still a clause in there that if you don't submit within 4 weeks, you could lose out on your benefits. You want to be cautious around that. So submit in your paperwork as soon as possible. And I would recommend be prepared to not see flows of funds until May.
Wow. Okay. And
you'll still have to qualify. So, people still need to realize this is not hey, I don't have any money. Can I, get this? There are still going to be qualifiers around it. And those were, some of the things is got to be directly related to the COVID-19.
Okay, great. And I think that this will probably be something that, we explore further and provide more clarity on as we get to know more too.
Yes.
Bringing this back into that, because that actually, provides some sense of, emotional relief, even you sharing that with me right now.
Mhm.
And then bringing this back into the employer side of the conversation, like what does an employer have to do to lay off an employee given this? Do they have to provide a written notice, and do they have to actually provide a recall date as well?
So no, employers have never been required to provide written notice. They're still not required. I always just recommend with all my clients in leadership that I coach to provide it. It's something about that feeling of getting a piece of paper versus a phone call, so or an email, from your employer, and encouraging other supportive verbiage in it. Recall dates, no, you do not have to. I would also, even at this point in time, state and push it to the maximum that you can if you're going to put a date in. But I'm recommending don't put any form of dates in it
Okay.
right now. So therefore, you can go to the max if you want. But put that letter together. It's nice to receive a letter, letting them know what you are as a business doing, and letting the employees know how you feel about them, that you value them, that this is a temporary thing, and at the end of it, we're just going to be recessing consistently.
Yeah, because this is much different than maybe some other situations in the past around layoffs. Like it doesn't mean you're not part of the organization or the team anymore. It's just not right now to
Hmm.
get through a crisis state.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I would encourage employers to as much as they possibly can, come out with some way to keep in communication with your staff. So you're sending them home, they're on layoffs, but keep in communication with them, if either it's company-wide newsletters, communications. If you're large enough that you've got an online portal or an employee database and an HRIS of some form, I would encourage to stay in contact with them as much as you can,
yeah,
so they're not
fantastic.
feeling isolated.
Yeah, and people can reach out to me around that as well. We had a Zoom call this morning with 40 of our team members on there, and it was great to see a lot of them face to face in this virtual way. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
what and so I forgot, I record of employment ROE. Just really curious, like what this is, and how do employers actually complete one of them?
Mhm. So record of employment, sometimes we forget what we already know. And I got a call yesterday from a client who's only been open for about a year. And they were like, what is this record of employment? I've never heard of it, type of thing, because they're such a new business. So record of employment is your record of earnings. It's your record of employment. And it records your start date, your end date, your last date, the reason why, but it also records your earnings, your hours of work, and things like that. Now, I'm not sure. I can't answer if they're still going to need all those details to be processing the new benefit, emergency response benefit, or not. But on a normal basis, a record of employment will provide all those details from between your start date and your end date, what your earnings and hours of work are, which is imperative at times to figure out what you're entitled to on a benefit.
Okay, great. And then a big part of this is employee benefit programs, and
Mhm.
how do let's say big layoffs impact employee benefit programs?
Yes, and so if you're going to be extending benefits, if you have benefits and you're going to be extending a layoff that's going to be longer than a couple of weeks, or even not, even shorter, keep your benefit programs going. So do not deactivate them. If you are an employer where your premium is split, a percentage like a 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, my have had multiple conversations in the last 2 days with some of the local law firms, and they are recommending just to pay that premium on behalf of the employee, pay their split.
Okay.
There's no normally It's normally the proper procedure. Most employers will say, while you're off on this leave, we'll cover it. However, it's not a mandatory requirement, but it's very difficult to put somebody off on layoff and say, and oh, by the way, cover this premium while you're off with no money coming in. So it's going to be kind of difficult. So really, of some of the conversations I'm having and bouncing off with some of the other professionals, that we're recommending that as the employer, you cover the premium split while they're off and keep it going. You cannot deactivate it at this point in time. Um, because it could become a breach of their human rights, removing their benefits away from them. Again, we don't know how this COVID is going to affect some of those areas. So right now, keep them activated and pay the premiums.
Okay. Yeah. And I can hear too in that the challenge for businesses that are struggling right now to just make cash flow, month to month expenses that, so I just empathize with the business owners in that situation as well. And, you know, I've also just been reading and hearing about, you know, people being confused between layoffs and terminations and one being considered as the other. Can you just provide some sort of clarity around that?
So temporary layoffs could move into the realm of a constructive dismissal under the umbrella of a termination if an organization didn't have it set up to be that in the first place. What I mean by that is if normally an organization, it will have to have in their handbook, their employee policy manual, playbook, whatever you want to call it, that they are an organ under their categories of employment ending, that layoffs would be an option. And they would usually have to require to have this in their employment offer at the time. So when you are signing up to take on employment with this organization, you're realizing at any point in time, you know, within my probation period, or within just cause, or you know, for no cause with payment and layoffs. So those would be the four main reasons why my employment can end. Most employers today do not have that, because most employers today are not an organization that would be doing layoffs on a frequently basis. Again, in discussions with many employment lawyers over the last week or so, we are all estimating that the courts would not consider the results of the layoffs to Corette today as a constructive dismissal, because this is a pandemic. It's going to fall in under a complete different umbrella. So really, we're saying I don't think you have to err, or you don't have to worry about the potential constructive dismissals at this point in time.
Okay.
Not saying it can't happen. Like we had a conversation yesterday, and you know, one of the lawyers said, yeah, you know, but if 6 months from now the company name may not be there and there's nothing that you can have a lawsuit on, right? But we really are feeling, everybody's really feeling that the Ministry of Labor and the courts are going to err on this one.
Okay, well, again, thank you. For anybody else who's watching this who has questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Corette. You'll have her contact details in this as well. But again, Corette, thank you so much for making yourself available to talk to us again today. I know we will be talking again, and you're always such a beautiful and great resource to us, and I thank you for that. I wish it was under better terms for better reasons right now, but just thanks for making yourself available and being out here when we're all, you know, staying home and isolating. So thanks for being a connecting force.
Anytime. It's always lovely to chat.
Thanks. Have a great day.